Anybody who writes a book, their first one is the worst book they will ever write. It doesn't mean it's a bad book. It just means that they continue to improve, and don't think you need to go back and rewrite your books and fix them. Just understand, if somebody listening to your show today has decided she's finally going to write that romance idea she's had and wanted to write for 20 years, and now she's going to do it, that she will get done with that book. She will write another one. And somewhere along the line, she will go back and read book one, and it won't be as good as the one she just wrote, because we get better, and that's okay.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Jeff Mara podcast. Today I have a very special guest. I've been looking forward to this guest, and the day is finally here, so hooray. Today we have Brian Meeks. Brian is a graduate of Iowa State University with a degree in economics. He is also the author of the Henry Wood Detective Series, the Secret Door series, and has also written a book about the 1986-87 Iowa Hawkeyes men's basketball team.
Yes. Oh, yeah. That was an adventure.
Yes.
I don't know if people want to hear that story, but that was fun.
Now, according to Amazon, he has written 11 novels and one nonfiction title. But I have another source that said that he has written 24 books. So at some point, we're going to get to the bottom of this.
The issue there is I've also written some books under the name Arthur Byrne. Arthur Byrne is the protagonist in my satire series, Underwood, Scotch, and Rye. And in that first book, he writes a book which I then wrote and published under his name. So I have some books written under Arthur Byrne. I have some nonfiction about the business of being an author, and I have co-written some books with Honore Corder. So that's why the numbers don't exactly line up if you're Googling me or searching me on Amazon.
Okay, that all makes sense. So am I correct in saying you've written 24 books, or there are even more?
No, that is correct.
That's
and I've got a couple that are finished that will be getting published in my Epic Fantasy series. My Epic Fantasy series. They'll be published this summer. And so, yes, I continue to produce books. It's been a full-time job for over 4 years now. And I started accidentally on January 2nd, 2010. I didn't even like writing.
All right. What were you doing when you started writing, and how did you get into it?
Well, I was poor. I had for a number of years made a living building virtual spaces in the world of Second Life. And when the bottom fell out of that, of building things for corporate clients, I moved back to Iowa in this house here and did some work helping a few people with managing social media. And this was this was before 2010. So it was a number of years ago, because the Second Life stuff, people in Second Life in the early years were very much early adopters. I was on Facebook the week it came out of beta. I was on Twitter the week it came out of beta. I was in the beta for Gmail. And so I was very much into all of the cutting edge stuff. And
now,
so
let me stop you there. I'm sorry to interrupt, but now, because for the people who don't know, I believe Second Life, isn't that a video game?
It's
a game where kind of a game.
Kind of a game. It's a virtual world where you build an avatar. We're all familiar with avatars, and you can wander around and meet people. There isn't an objective. It's a place to hang out and interact with other people, but you can also dress your avatar. You can buy Armani suits for it. You can buy land. You can build a house. And I built a project for a gentleman, and I had to sign an NDA, so I won't say his name. He's since passed on, but at the time, he was the 18th wealthiest man in the world, and I built a $97,000 project for him because he wanted to understand Second Life, and so he hired me and my team to build this thing that he wanted to see what could be done. And so that's how I got my start in making a living in Second Life. But the Electric Sheep Company, they did part of two CSI episodes where they built in Second Life the set and the bad guy in the story.
Yes.
They tracked him into Second Life, and so they filmed half of 2 episodes in Second Life, and they built that. I think that was a multi-million-dollar project for CBS, if I'm not mistaken. But that taught me some skills with regards to Photoshop. That taught me social media. And then from there, when I started writing, I created a blog, and it was entirely accidental. I had not intended on being a blogger, but on January 2nd, 2010, the football game that I wanted to watch the kickoff wasn't for several hours. And I was bored. So I did what one does. I was zipping around the World Wide Web, and I found this place called Blogger.
Okay.
Blogger.com. I hated writing. I had a horrible 8th grade English teacher who was mean, and she beat any possible love of writing I would ever have, or so I thought, at age 42, out of me. But I had a funny story, and I was bored. So I wrote this little story about my foibles in woodworking because I was new to it, and hit publish, and then continued on. And I found this site called Lumberjocks, and Lumberjocks was this forum where woodworkers hung out and they talked about their projects. And I actually, just because I want to show off, this is later when I got better at woodworking. This is one of the little tiny boxes I built. I'm not a great woodworker, but
it's very nice.
But it's cute. But anyway, this time I was still building my original workbench. That's what all woodworkers do. We start with a workbench because it's 4 legs, a shelf. By a vise, it's easy. Well, there's an old adage that says measure twice, cut once. Have you heard that adage?
I think so.
Yeah. Well, sadly, it doesn't apply if you're measuring twice while watching college football, which is what I was doing on January 1st of 2010. And so when I woke up on the 2nd and set up my 4 legs that I had measured twice and cut once, I had legs of 3 different lengths. And so I just laughed because I hadn't been paying attention. I was watching football, I was measuring, I was marking. And so I wrote a post about that. Well, after I found this site, I spent an hour reading these stories from amazing woodworkers, people doing reproductions of Queen Anne sideboards. I mean, one guy, he bought lumber. There are places you can buy lumber that is dredged up from rivers that is 300-400 years old. And so not only did he do this reproduction, he did it with wood from the period. So if you DNA tested it, it would say it was 350 years old, which was, so I was so blown away. And I decided, well, I'll forget where this place is, so I better join. Once I joined, a little button came up. I did the email, went back, confirmed, and now it said blog. Well, I had already blogged, and it was about woodworking. So I went back, I copied and pasted, Control V, Control C. I put it right there in the forum, hit post, and went and watched my football game. Now, the next day I went back. 300 people had read my post. 25 people had left comments, and I had spent an hour on the site, and most of the posts didn't have that many views. There weren't that many comments. 25 people had said things along the lines of, this is hilarious. I can't wait for your next post. I've been here for 5 years. And I went from hating writing to, wow, this external validation stuff is kind of nice. So I wrote another post. And then, being familiar with social media and blogging and such, I decided, well, I'm going to start a blog and blog every day. And I did that. And on January 29th, now the first post was on January 2nd, I hadn't done any woodworking. So the only thing I had done, and I've been talking about this for weeks on the blog, is that I was saving up money to buy a router. And a router is a woodworking tool that lets you do some things. But it was expensive, and I was poor. At the time, I was living below the poverty line.
You'd finished the Second Life project at that time.
Yeah, the Second Life stuff, I'd done a handful of projects there. I did one for iWoot that actually, when we launched, had 7 million people checked out the launch party, which was kind of a big deal. But
were you? Oh, I'm so sorry. I just want to. I'm just kind of getting. I want to get just kind of a feel of your life at the time. So you were living in Iowa. Where in Iowa?
Well, between Des Moines and Davenport. Okay. I live in a town called Martell, which is population 252. Okay. Our family has had a farm outside of town for 150 years. And at the time I was doing Second Life, I was living in Germantown, Maryland, and working at Geico, where a 15-minute call could save you 15% on your auto insurance. I was in the marketing department, and so I always say that.
Right.
But when I left Geico to do the full-time building in Second Life, that's when I learned social media and started getting a feel for that stuff. And then I came back to Iowa, and on January 2nd, I started writing.
Right. I just
want my mind immediately turned to, you know what, if I can get enough followers, maybe I can make a little extra money, which would be helpful because I was kind of poor.
Right. And I was trying to get a feel for more as you moved back, how poor you were. I mean, nothing personal. Yeah. I just kind of wanted to see what your situation was you could move back maybe to your family farm at that time. Is that where you're living?
I live in a house in Martell. We had the family farm, which was about 3.5 miles outside of town, and a farmhouse there. And at the time I moved back, my grandfather had already retired from farming, and we were leasing the land. So there were people that lived in that house. This house was the house they moved into when my grandfather retired. At the time I moved back in 2010, Grandpa and Grandma had moved into a retirement community. And so this had been empty for 3 years.
Right.
So I came back. I didn't have rent. I just had utilities.
Right. That's good.
And I made a lot of money in Second Life.
Right.
And that money went into the bank. And then when Second Life dried up, I just kind of lived off that money till I was broke.
Right. Okay. So that's where you were.
That's what got me to the point where I didn't have any money. And so the sun is setting here, and I'm getting kind of, but I digress.
It's okay.
So I decided on January 29th that I had not done any woodworking, and so what I decided to do was write a blog post, but do it a little differently, and it would be the first chapter of a noir mystery, and my protagonist, a detective named Henry Wood.
Right.
All my readers are woodworkers.
Right.
And he lives in Brooklyn, New York, works in Manhattan. It's 1955, which is the only year the Brooklyn Dodgers won the World Series. My father grew up a rabid Brooklyn Dodgers fan. And so that was a nod to him because he was one of my readers.
Right.
And so I wrote this first chapter, and in it I had this magical closet that occasionally gave him presents from the future. And so I had this opening, this noir detective, and I mentioned this closet, and the whole point of this 1,000 words was I finally bought the router because that was the present in the closet.
Oh, wow.
I set up this whole story idea because I was trying to be creative for the blog, and they loved it.
Oh, wow.
I didn't expect to write chapter 2. Well, that was January 29th, and by September, I had finished my first novel. I then finished the 4th book in the Henry Wood series before I published the first one because I was poor. I couldn't afford the editing.
Right.
So I kept writing and saving up to hire an editor. And then when I could, I paid for the editing. I did my own cover, which is a bad idea. Don't do that. In fact, if people are curious, you can see the first cover I did on the print version of Henry Wood Detective Agency because I kept it there just because I like to be able to show people what not to do.
Right.
And so I published it. And then the first year, I think it made $250. So not very much, but I kept saving up. And then quickly so I published it in 2012 and then, or 2011 or 12, I'm getting old. But then over the next year, I saved up and kept pouring the money back in and got all 4 books published. But I was continuing to write. Now, the thing that was interesting that's a little different than most authors is I wrote all of my first 6 novels as blog posts.
Okay.
So every single day, or not every day, but every day I wanted to write an additional chapter. Mm-hmm. It was a blog post, and I put it up, warts and all. Mm-hmm. I didn't worry about the fact that sometimes I would spell the TEH.
Right.
My readers didn't care.
Right.
And I was going to, before I published it, I would have it edited, and that would be cleaned up, but for the readers. And so that's kind of how it went until about 4 years ago, when I delved into Amazon ads, which is a pay-per-click advertising system. Mm-hmm. And at that point, my best month ever had been $2,000. I'd had 1 month where, through some advertising and so forth on these platforms, one being BookBub, I had a spectacular month. Most months were $500 to $600, but I kept pouring it back into my business.
Was that $400 or $500 on all 4 books, or just your first book?
Well, no, that was combined. But by that point, it was 6 books, because I had launched The Secret Doors. I had launched my thriller, A Touch to Die For. And so I had 6 books bringing in about $100 each over. Well, it wasn't each. The thriller didn't do much, but total was about $600.
Were most of the sales an actual, physical copies of the book,
or
just like Kindle or whatever?
They're all Kindle.
They're all Kindle.
90+% of sales. I have a dozen author friends who make $100,000 every single month, and it's almost entirely Kindle sales.
Right. So I'm not an author. Are most books now purchased as Kindle, and people don't really buy physical books anymore?
There are still many, many physical books that are sold.
Okay.
But it's just so much easier to sell a Kindle version. You mentioned the book I did on the 86-87 Iowa Hawkeyes men's basketball team.
Right.
Well, it was through the eyes of Roy Marble. He's the all-time leading scorer for the University of Iowa. And him and I did, over 3 weekends, a sort of mini signing tour, where in Iowa, in the Midwest, there's a grocery store chain called Hy-Vee. And these are massive grocery stores. We went to 30 of them in 3 weekends. And people would come because this was the University of Iowa's hero, Roy Marble, and they wanted to buy the book and get a signature.
Right.
We did that for 3 weeks, 30 of them. It was exhausting. And at the end of the day, I think after all the expenses, I made $200.
Oh, wow.
It's just not even worth it to try to sell print books.
Wow, it's not profitable.
And again, it varies. I have one author that I coached who mostly sells print books because she's writing middle grade. And so those books are heavy. They're illustrations. They don't have a lot of words to them. You can write a middle grade book in an hour.
Okay.
But then you need, unless you're the artist, you need to hire the illustrator to do all the pages.
Right.
And grade school, middle grade books, those ones, not middle grade. I mean children's books, like 4 to 8 years old. And so because that age group, there's a lot of pictures, it's very cost heavy at the beginning of the process. And then you do sell mostly print versions, and it's mostly in November and December because they're Christmas presents, they're holiday presents.
Right.
So I don't want to say that print doesn't exist. And there are certainly, I would guess that my friends making 7 figures a year, they probably make $50,000 to $100,000 from print.
Right.
But that's a tiny fraction of what they're doing. And so most authors are focused on the ebook because it's the easiest path to start to generate revenue. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. Let me ask you this, if you don't mind answering.
I don't mind.
What do your books sell for on Kindle, and what is your take?
2 great questions. I price my books, most of them for my fiction are $4.99.
Okay.
My take is 70%.
So that's pretty good.
It is very good. I have written about this in my nonfiction. Now, my two main nonfiction books are Mastering Amazon Ads and Mastering Amazon Descriptions, about the art of copywriting to sell books. I mean, it's the copy that you put on your Amazon page. Or, I mean, I keep saying Amazon, but there's Barnes & Noble, there's Kobo. Kobo is a Canadian company that sells all over the world. There are other platforms out there. iBooks is another one. A lot of people enjoy iBooks. So I don't want to sound like I only sell on Amazon.
Right.
I have my Epic Fantasy series, which is wide and sells across all the platforms. Most of my fiction, though, is exclusive to Amazon.
Do you get a lot of metrics from them, like on any of these websites? Do you get a lot of analytics, like who your readers are, ages, or any? You get nothing.
No, it's
not even from the country. Like 80% from the U.S.
No, I know which country the sales happen to, and that's it.
That's it.
That's it. You don't get a lot of metrics. I'm a former data analyst, so I would love there to be more numbers. And in fact, the reason that I make a living as an author and doing various other author related things is because of my background in analytics. Many of the people that come to me for coaching, most of them are better writers than me. Right. My books tend to range from 4.1 as far as the reviews to 4.4, with the exception being the nonfiction, which are 4.6, 4.7 in that range.
Right.
And when you were talking about pricing, the nonfiction, the two titles are $9.99. So I make just under $7 for those.
Right.
And I make less if I sell the print version. I should back up. With my nonfiction, I sell more print than I do with the fiction, because people who are buying a book to solve a problem, for instance, if you were to decide you know a lot about YouTube, if you wrote a book about YouTube, that would be a nonfiction book about how to be a YouTuber.
Right.
And if you wrote that book, you would sell maybe 30 or 40% of your books would be print, because people like to use highlighters and take notes and so forth. So
right.
I need to make it clear that if you're doing a nonfiction book, you will sell more print. And some authors will write a book that is a calling card. Maybe they do public speaking. Maybe they charge $10,000 for a keynote, and the book is their business card that says, I'm an expert in widgets.
Right.
So print isn't dead by any means. It's just most authors or most new folks want to get into fiction.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
fine.
Do you earn more profit from print, or is it the same? Or what are the numbers like? I mean, I would assume that a printed book probably sells more because of the cost of paper. But
there's more expense because the Kindle book, there's a delivery cost, and I use air quotes. Amazon charges about 5 cents to deliver one of my fiction novels. And so it's priced at $4.99. Instead of making $3.49, I make $3.44 because there's that 5 cent hit.
Okay.
Another thing, because a lot of your listeners are not authors, and so I'm throwing a lot of things at them, but I want to be clear. If you're doing a book that has pictures, like a photography book, that little 5 cents is based on the file size, which for fiction is almost entirely words, so it's minuscule.
Right.
If you tried to do a photography book on Kindle, you might have a $3.20 delivery charge because the file's massive.
Right.
And so you can actually create a book that can't make a profit if you're heavy on illustrations and images. But I digress. You asked about the print, and again, I think you should write a book because I want to read it. But I'm not trying to be a bully. I just think it would be awesome if you were to write a book. The difference, so I make around $6.95 from selling my nonfiction title, Mastering Amazon Descriptions, as an example.
Right.
The print version sells for $17.95. The reason I priced it at that is because at that price, I make almost the exact same amount, like $6.50 on the print version. Right. So that gives you an idea. I make around $6.50, and it's the price, the profit. We can set the price anywhere. Right. I could sell it for $30, right, and my cost on the book would not change. So if I raised it to $18.95, I would make $1 more, because you're set in stone. Right. As far as Amazon gets their profit, there's cost for printing the book. I can price it at anything. I choose to price it so that it doesn't matter which route people go. I make about the same amount.
Have you actually done any studying yourself about what you think price points should be?
Yes, I have. First off, I want to tell everybody listening that's maybe new to this podcast. I told some of my friends that I was going to be on this show. Jeff asked me if there's anything specifically we should talk about. And I said, you know what? I love not knowing what the questions are. So every one of his questions, though it seems like it's a pre-rehearsed perfect question, it is not. These are completely his own doing, right? But they're absolutely awesome.
And I concur on that. That is true. And the thing is, I just ask. I'm obviously not the best podcaster in the world, but I am interested in people.
Sure.
And I just wing it, and off our conversation, I want more information. I just ask it. Sometimes I have to interrupt you, but that's what it is.
And now I've forgotten what the question was. Can you give me the question again?
Have you done done research to say, okay, books should sell at this price or whatever?
Yes. And in fact, because I have built my success because I'm a data analyst guy. Wow. My books are heavy on the math behind why things work. There aren't that many people in this industry that do data analytics. There's most authors come from more of an artistic background. They didn't like math in high school or college.
Right.
And not to generalize, but I have 11,000 authors in my group, and that's the complaint people have most is they hate doing math. I love it, and I'm a trained analyst. And so to answer your question, yes, I've done the studies, and I have a degree in economics, and I can tell you that price, there's a term, if anybody out there has had an Econ 101 course, it's very basic economics, it's called price elasticity of demand. And it simply means if you've got a set price and you raise it by 10%, will your sales drop enough that you're making less money? Or do people not care and you can raise your price and increase your profit margin? That is elasticity of demand. And it is clear from the studies I've done up through the price point of $5.99 that shoppers of ebooks do not care.
Oh, wow.
And so if somebody listening out there is an author, and maybe some of my authors are listening, if they have a book at $2.99 and they raise it to $4.99, they will make $1.40 more because they get 70 cents on the dollar. And there may be a slight drop to no drop in sales. So they will make more money. I've absolutely studied that, and I've written about it extensively on various Facebook posts and so forth. And I have the background to actually do the real math.
Right.
But price does not matter when it comes to...
I'm assuming there's got to be a point where people say, whoa, that's way too expensive. I'm not paying that.
Well, there is. And this has been the problem for the traditional publishers, is that they thought there was if you're in the publishing world, there was this case, Hachette versus Amazon a few years ago, and they were fighting to stop Amazon from lowering the price to $9.99. Bezos believes that $9.99 is the most you should ever pay for a digital book.
Right.
I agree. And what he was doing is these publishers, the big five, all the major publishers, they were charging $12, $13.99. And I don't know exactly what terms they have with Amazon, but Bezos decided to lower the price to $9.99 and he took it entirely out of his cut. Meaning, if they were getting $9 out of the $12.99, they were still getting $9.
Oh,
but,
okay.
And so it was entirely out of Bezos' pocket, and they sued him to stop that.
Interesting.
And they won.
Wow.
And what happened over the next year is they raised their prices up to $12.99, $13.99, $14.99, because in the traditional publishing world, they want to protect their print sales, because for 50, 70 years, their mindset has been, how can we sell the most physical books? Which is why they're doing poorly. And so what happened is their ebook sales plummeted after that case. And that was across all of them. And now they're starting to realize that it's a zero raw material product.
Yeah.
There's no paper. $9.99 is plenty. And they're losing out to people like me in the indie author community, because we price our books at $4.99, $5.99. A new author might price their book at 99 cents to get traction. I don't recommend it. But you can go out and get a very good story for 99 cents to $4.99. You don't need to pay $13.99 for a title. And they're finding out that, yes, Dan Brown can command that and people will pay it. But they're finding a lot of authors that are just as good charging $4.99, and so yes, I've studied it, and that's the answer.
Excluding textbooks, have you found any type of book or subject of book, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, that is more popular and more profitable? Like if I write mystery books or fantasy books or how-to books or whatever. What do you think?
Yes. I can tell you the most popular genres. There's the most popular, the authors and of the friends that I have who are making these 7 figures a year, 10 of them are romance authors.
Interesting.
Romance authors, it's a double-edged sword though. The biggest money's in romance, but romance readers demand that you write the books and keep publishing. They want their authors to produce 12 to 14 novels per year.
Wow.
And they will send hate mail if they don't get that. So the authors that are romance, they go down this path and they start making crazy money.
Yes.
And it takes an enormous amount of work, and they build up this fan base. But once they do, it's not that they can't leave. It's that if they decide to take 6 weeks off, they'll start to get hate mail. And these are from the people that love them most.
Wow, that's fascinating.
It is a brutal way to go. But if that's the books that you, and I say you, the listeners, enjoy reading, there's a lot of money in there. There's also a lot of competition. Now, mystery thriller is probably second. But one that people probably don't know about, most of your listeners, is a thing called Lit RPG.
Lit RPG. Okay.
And RPG stands for role-playing games.
Okay.
So for those that have played Dungeons and Dragons or other tabletop games where you're rolling dice, these are books where the protagonist will get sucked into a video game and he or she then finds out that they can level up and they get points, and the authors tell this story about their character and they give all the updates on the stats and the numbers that we get as role players when we're playing D&D or what have you. It's a hugely popular genre. But again, if you can stand to write in that genre, which you have to do all the details, you have to, there's a battle, and then you have to give experience points and this is a 50,000 foot view of the genre. It's more nuanced than that. But their readers only give 1 or 5-star reviews. They are the most militant reviewers of any genre. If they like your book, they give it 5 stars and they write a glowing review. And then somebody will read it and that person will be angry and bitter. And so they will then write a 1-star review after maybe having read the book, or they'll say, oh, it is romance. There's drama, lit RPG, there's drama. But again, if you can produce at a high quantity, you will sell them as fast as you can write them. They consume so many books. So you have to have a thick skin to get into lit RPG. But if you can do it well and build a fan base, you're printing money.
Wow.
And so, I've never wanted to write lit RPG. I've read a couple of them and I really like reading them, but I'm happy doing my thing.
Two questions. First, I'll just go, before we leave this subject, about different styles, are you on LinkedIn?
I am. I don't do much with it. Okay. I've probably only got 400 or 500 friends on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's somewhere where I got anybody who just asks me to add, I just say accept. I don't even care. I just hit accept.
Yes.
And so there's a friend that is a writer that writes about his stories about, I guess he's a male. I don't know the age, but he's really into like wearing diapers, and I'm trying to use the right words, how to put this politely.
Fetish stuff?
Fetish stuff is kind of the what he's writing. And I was going to ask, does fetish writing, or I don't like to use the word smut, but fetish or erotica, there's a great word. How about that? Is that big money?
Yes. Erotica is sort of so there's romance and understand, within the romance broad genre, there are many, many dozens, maybe more than 100 subgenres. Okay. So there can be Christian clean romance. There can be much more. It's the level of
dark
and type of
satanic.
Sex.
Yeah.
Well, anything you can imagine. There's Western romance. There's clean romance. There's steamy romance. There's superhero romance. Again, I couldn't even begin to name them all. I just wrote a number of descriptions for historical romance, where takes place 300-400 years ago, and it's about royalty in Scotland or what have you. That's a whole thing. At Regency, it's called Regency Romance. So there are many, many different types of romance. Again, the readers will consume as much as you can write. And I don't know that you necessarily lump erotica into romance necessarily, but it's similar in that there's demand for it. What's different is that erotica is about the sex scenes. You don't need to have much of a story. You also don't need a lot of length. You can write a 15 or 20,000 word piece of erotica and sell it for $2.99 to $4.99 instead of trying to write 50, 60,000 word novel. Novels defined as either 40 or 50,000 words. And so there are people that make a living writing these short pieces of erotica. And there are genres that are very tiny niches. For instance, there is a couple authors, and there's only a handful, that make their living writing girl on dinosaur erotica.
Wow.
Now, I've not read any girl on dinosaur erotica.
Yeah.
I didn't know. If I weren't in this business, I wouldn't know that was a genre. But there are enough readers that a handful of authors can make their living with girl on dinosaur erotica. But there's shifter romance. The whole Twilight series is vampires and werewolves. There's urban fantasy. So there's literally hundreds of different ways to tell stories. There's new adult romance, which is young people in the 18 to 20-year-old. Again, there's a story, but there's also the romantic, and depending on the author, differing levels of explicitity in the sex scenes. So some of it's fade to black. Fade to black is just a term where it's a romance and the characters are going into the room and they're starting to have sex, and then it goes, and then that's it. You don't get any details. So it's a massive industry is the point.
Is the market saturated with authors? And is it very competitive? Like, is it very difficult?
It is very competitive. It is absolutely competitive. But you have to understand that the consumption by the readers, there's a lot of authors, and there's certainly, just like in any profession, whether it's being a YouTuber,
right?
Only 1% of the YouTubers are in the top 1%.
Right.
Yeah, that's just how it is. I can be a YouTuber, but I don't have your knowledge base that allowed you to get to where you are. Maybe you could teach me. But what I do know of YouTubers, and I follow many of them because YouTube is where I go for my entertainment. Right. I love Matt from Demolition Ranch.
Oh wow!
Are you familiar with Demolition Ranch?
Yeah, he lives. Here's a crazy story.
Matt?
I know his brother.
Oh, he who just passed away.
No, his other brother.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know about the other brother.
I've never met Matt. Matt lives about 30 to 45 minutes from me in Texas.
Oh, that's awesome.
And my son got me into this. There's a stuff called airsoft. I don't know if you know what that is.
I only know of it
because
of Demolition Ranch, Off the Ranch. I mean, I have watched hundreds and hundreds of hours of Matt's stuff. So I know about airsoft in great detail.
Oh, great.
Because of his channels.
Right.
So absolutely.
So there's a local place near me that we go play airsoft, and I played a couple times and his I guess it's his younger brother, and you can look him up. His name is Operator Drewski.
Okay, I will look him up. That's fantastic.
And Operator Drewski was out there playing, and we've chit-chatted. You know, every time I go, I don't play that much, especially right now. It's just too damn hot to be out there dealing with that.
In Texas. Absolutely.
I don't see him that often, and I don't go that often myself either. But anyways, we would chit-chat from time to time, and he's a very nice guy. And I think Operator Drewski is more of a gamer. He does more, gameplay videos like Squad and something else.
Yeah. Well, I've watched a few. You know, his other brother got sick and passed away earlier this year, and that was heartbreaking because I only knew the other brother from having been on his videos, and I watched a few of the other brother had done some YouTubing as well, and he had a different style, but it was heartbreaking.
Yeah, I didn't know the other brother. I didn't know he'd passed away. I heard that he was sick, and I didn't. Yeah. I've never watched his YouTube videos, and I like Matt's stuff. Matt's stuff is great. I don't watch it a lot. Funny enough, I watch some YouTube, and what I do to kind of see what's going on, to kind of see what's out there. And then I don't watch a lot of stuff that I do. I just kind of watch whatever. I'm into, I don't know. I kind of skim around. And YouTube has changed. I've been doing it since 2005, before Google bought it. And it has changed dramatically over the last, whatever that is, 15, 16 years. And everything is completely, it's different than it was, completely different 5 years ago. You know what I mean? It's just.
Yeah. I love YouTube. I consume a lot of stuff. There's a guy who has a chess channel. I enjoy playing chess called King Crusher. And I watch a lot of his videos because he's entertaining. And I get better as a chess player because his analysis is really good. He's a high level player. And then one of the channels that I really like, which is odd because I'm not musical. I can't sing. I don't play any instruments. Is Davey 504.
Yeah,
do you know that?
No, yeah.
Davey 504 is a bass player.
I might have seen him now that I've seen some bass player. Is he the one that put his YouTube button inside his bass?
Yes.
I saw that video.
He is so funny. And what I love about his videos, because I'm fascinated by YouTube. I am interested in how YouTubers do their editing. I like their intros and their outros. I love the way they build their audience. And what I have learned about the bass guitar from Davey 504 is that there's different ways to play. You can pick the strings, you can strum them, you can slap them. And so his shtick is he always, throughout his video, he'll say, slap like now.
Yeah.
And that's how he builds his audience. And then he does all of these at at 3 million subscribers, Italian laugh reveal, because he's Italian.
Okay.
And so he has all these just ridiculous things to build his channel, but he's so entertaining. And I've watched probably 40 to 50 hours of his videos about playing bass guitar. And I'm not musical, but it's quality entertainment. And so just like, the unboxing videos, of course, everybody knows, the famous Ryan did $18 million last year.
Yeah.
It's a great source for entertainment. And so that's where I go. And,
even beyond that, it's a great source if you just need to, something was wrong with my air conditioner and I don't know how to fix it. I'll go find that, it's amazing,
there's how-to videos. I one time went down this rabbit hole and I was trying to find, I can't remember the guy's name, but I went down a rabbit hole because I've never known how pulleys work. And for some reason I needed to know how pulleys worked. And so I went down a rabbit hole and YouTube taught me why pulleys let you pull and raise weight that is greater than your strength. And so, the science stuff is cool.
Right.
So,
let me interrupt you here. I've got a question. We got our first question of the night. Yay.
Excellent.
This looks like it's from Nico Marie. Question for Brian. Have you noticed any significant effect on your sales during the pandemic? I imagine people are reading more but spending less. Curious what your research/data shows on this. That is a good question.
That's a great question, Nico. I have not noticed. My fear was back in January that there would be a drop off because society would shut down. But I think Nico's right. I think people have, because they're at home, been able to find time to do more reading. And so I have seen a little bit of an uptick, I think, in volume of the fiction, because people maybe are, the readers are finding they have a little time to do something that maybe they loved, but work and life and children just got in the way, and now they're finding the time. So, and I've talked to other authors who have seen an uptick with COVID. But of course, you know what? I've also had conversations with authors who have seen it drop off. Now, the thing about the book business is usually I will get on a call with them and we'll sort of go through their data, and I'll find out that it wasn't, the zombie apocalypse related. It was, they hadn't noticed their ad spend had dropped by 50%. And so they're getting half as many clicks.
Oh, because they weren't.
Because they just hadn't stayed on top of things. Right. And so usually, or I guess in every instance where I've spoken with somebody who was concerned about COVID-19 related drop off, that it was more, they had gotten distracted and their clicks had dropped off.
Right.
And when I pointed that out, they knew how to fix it. So good question, Nico.
What do you think is more difficult, writing the book or marketing and selling the book?
Marketing and selling. And I answer that. I find both of them to be relatively easy, but I answer that from experience in working with authors, because authors do not nobody comes from a background where they got to work in the marketing department at Geico. I had the benefit of learning data analytics from an actuarial fellow, which actuary science is a level of math that is even hard to describe. And so I was taught by a genius, spent years doing data analytics, so that when I became an author, I could put that knowledge into effectively selling my books. And having spent the last 4 years trying to teach a lot of authors how to do the marketing, we're not taught data analytics in high school.
Yes.
Unless you're in STEM in college. Even a lot of the sciences don't, unless it's a research science, they don't go into the data analytics. And so it's a very small percentage of the population that has background in how to critically think through numbers. And so authors don't like to do that. Well, the ones that have come to me, and I mentioned the woman who writes children's books. When she came to me, she was doing a few thousand a year. Okay. And I used to live on the Las Vegas Strip before the zombie apocalypse. Mm-hmm. She came out to visit about 8 or 9 months ago, took me to lunch, and she said, I just want to thank you for the time you spent working with me. And over the last 6 months, I've had $50,000 in profit. So she had gone from a few thousand to, and doing that in children's books, which is, that comes with its own challenge, because when you're marketing, are you writing the advertising copy to the parent?
Yeah.
Or are you writing it to the child? And you kind of have to straddle both, because what's going to happen is the parent will get online and they will read the copy to the child.
Yeah.
And so you have to sell the child, but you also have to sell the parent on, this is going to be wholesome, or this is going to have a lesson that is something you want your child to learn. And so it's even harder for children's books or middle grade, but she's done it. And so I know the authors that have become successful that are, I mentioned the 7-figure ones. That's a unique group, right. But I have plenty of author friends making $5,000 to $10,000 a month. Nice. And this has been money that has allowed them to quit their day job, or a lot of them are stay-at-home moms and they're raising children and feeding and clothing them. And having this extra money come in has allowed them to do things, take vacations that maybe they couldn't afford. And so it can be life-changing. But what people don't realize when they listen to podcasts like this one and an author talking about, throwing out numbers, I've done a little over 300,000 in sales, which again, relative to my friends, is small, but compared to when I was living on $7,000-8,000 a year, it's been life-changing money.
Of course, yeah.
And so I'm not the best author out there,
right,
but I'm pretty good at doing well enough to, I wake up every day whenever I want to.
Yeah.
And you know what's great about being an author is pants are optional.
Yes.
I can sit down at my computer and start writing. And if I decide not to put on pants that day, that's my option. I loved working at Geico. I loved being a data analyst. But I had an hour commute each way, a 45-minute commute each way.
Right.
That's an hour and a half of your life, 5 days a week.
Right.
It's if somebody out there is thinking they might like to try it, it is not oversaturated. There will always be new authors. And just understand that it takes a long time. And there's a lot to learn. There's no shot clock. That's where most new authors get frustrated. Is they join these groups and they think, oh, look at him. He's making, I would love to make $4,000 a month, but I'm making $80 a month. And they start to badmouth themselves. But the person making $4,000 was making $80 a month for a long time. All the overnight successes I know, except for one, all of them went for years before things took off. And so it's, but if you like writing a story, do it, because it's the golden age of being an author. You don't need to go through a publisher. You can be your own publisher and keep 70 cents.
It's like the internet. Excuse me. Let me catch this first, and then I'll carry on, because I don't want to leave this guy out. Nico again said he thinks that apocalypse books must be killing it right now.
Well, just in the interest of full disclosure, I actually know Nico on Facebook, and it's a she.
Oh,
She's
it's a she.
lovely.
Oh,
it's a she.
Forgive me, Nico. I have no idea.
Nico's gender correct.
Right.
I have no idea if apocalypse books are doing well on Amazon. I do know that Amazon is not allowing things that specifically reference COVID-19. I mean, they're trying to make sure nobody is capitalizing on the pandemic.
Right.
And so even people that have written zombie apocalypse books are having to change their descriptions just because it might be similar to something related to the real world. And so Amazon wants it to be clear that this is not COVID-19 related.
Wow.
But yeah, I have no idea if, I mean, on one hand, Nico might be right that that's what we're going through. But on the other hand, we're living it. Do you want to read about it? I have no idea.
Right.
I have some author friends who are apocalypse writers. I should ask them.
From what you're saying, it sounds like being an author, it's going to take time to make money. It's not an overnight get rich deal. So do you recommend for people who want to be an author that you've got to love it? If you're expecting you're just going to write a couple books and get rich quick, it's probably not going to happen. You're going to have to love being an author. And I'm going to say that actually for people who do YouTube too in the same way. It's like, you may get lucky and may crank out a video or two that just blows up, but if you want to live from it and get continued an income and continued success, it's a long-term gain, and it's a grind. I put in a hell of a lot of hours, but I enjoy it. I like editing videos and and coming up with stuff.
You make a great point, because it is in anything.
Yeah.
There's the 10,000 hour rule. If you want to be a world-class violinist, you got to put in the time.
Right.
It's the same. We all know, Pewdiepie, 100 million followers. Mr. Beast. Are you familiar with Mr. Beast?
Yeah, of course.
Well, Mr. Beast, most people don't know that he tried to make it as a YouTuber doing video game stuff for 6 years before he got the idea to just stare into the camera and say Pewdiepie, 100,000 times. And now he has 25 million followers but he worked hard at it for 6 years, getting 100 views on his videos every single time for years until he had an idea that changed his life.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, well, may I ask you a question?
Sure.
How long did it take you to get to 1,000 followers? Do you remember?
I don't really know the numbers. I can say that my original channel is called Jeff Mara. My name's Jeff, obviously. My wife's name is Mara. When I started YouTube, nobody was making money. It wasn't even really a thought in my brain. I just liked throwing up stuff, and I put up all kinds of stuff. And I don't know if I had told you, I might have, that I'm still a licensed chiropractor, even though I don't practice anymore.
Oh, that's awesome. I have a chiropractic appointment tomorrow.
Well, there you go. I would make stuff and just make stuff for the fun of it. And somewhere along the line, I like drinking Indian masala chai tea. So one time I made a video and I put up how to make it because I kept experimenting and finally came up with a great recipe. So still there was no money to be made, but I was surprised that some guy from Brazil liked my video and he wanted me to make a tea video about his tea and sent me his tea. Neat. Yeah. So, and around 2010, my first breakthrough was my oldest son at the time. Gosh, how old was he? He was probably about 4 or 5-ish, and he was really into Thomas the Train.
Oh,
and I noticed that what was big on YouTube at the time was the most rinky-dink, simplistic videos of people just crashing trains into each other.
Oh, really?
We're getting a lot of views. And so I just one-upped it, and I just took his trains and I just crash them into each other, and I would add like a cheesy little explosion effect and a cheesy sound effect, and it started taking off. And
that was your 100,000 Pewdiepie idea.
Yeah.
You saw something and you came up with it.
And I just one-upped it. And actually there's some famous YouTuber that said, and there's a little bit of advice for whoever, that you don't have to have the quality of Hollywood or television to get good at YouTube. You just got to be better than the next guy.
That makes sense.
I just kind of one-upped him, and it was doing well. And at the time, you had to be invited by YouTube to make money. So they invited me. Would you like us to run some ads on your videos? Sure, great. And I remember back in the day, I was making like 65 cents a day. But I was so happy. I was like,
but it's satisfying.
Exactly.
I've done stock photography, and I'd make a couple $100 a year from stock, but sometimes I'll get that notice and I'll look and I'll have made 65 cents. Yeah. Now, that same day I might have written 3 descriptions for authors and made $360.
Yeah.
But that 65 cents is so satisfying.
All right. And so I think that was the moment that we started taking off. And my career, and I think you would probably talk to other YouTubers, it's not really like a linear getting better. It's like you do jumps. You'll jump, and then all of a sudden you'll be coasting for a while, just kind of going up, and then all of a sudden you'll just take off again. And there was probably 50 of us in the world doing it back in the old days, and there was, now there's I think 10 million, if not more. I love to experiment and just do different stuff. I felt like I'm pretty sure we've did a lot of the first things in children's videos. I think I just said, I used to sit around and think, what do kids want to see? And I said, let's just go buy a whole bunch of candy. It's Valentine's Day, and review candy. And the video blew up. And then what was awesome is, and then it kind of went back down. But next year, when Valentine's Day rolled around, it blew up again.
Oh, that's cool.
And then
I'm looking for the candy video.
What happened is most of these videos, there's another long story, and I'm here for you, not for me. But
well, I know, but this is fascinating stuff.
But anyways, at one point there was these things that are called Kinder eggs. They are chocolate eggs, hollow eggs with toys inside. There's a law.
I'm familiar with those. Yeah.
There's a law in the U.S. that they kind of made a new way around them, that they package them differently, so they sell them now. But if you go to Mexico or Canada or Europe, it's a chocolate egg, and inside of it is a toy. And just cracking those things, put your hands real close to the camera and crack it open and pull it out, and this is what you got. And it was like crack for kids. They just love watching you open those things up. And so eventually at some point I came up with the idea, and you can see that on my channel. I came up with the idea to make the biggest one.
That's the video I just found.
Yeah, the biggest one. And so I said, well, I'm going to go make the biggest one. And here I'm in San Antonio, and the population is the majority Hispanic. And I think obviously the Hispanic people love it, and everybody loves it, but it's popular here are piñatas. I don't know if you can buy piñatas in Des Moines, Iowa, or in Iowa, except maybe at Walmart.
But, maybe like the dollar store or something.
Right, where you have stores that have all kinds of stuff and creations. Sure. And so I rolled down there, and they had a giant egg, and I just cut it open, and I went to Ross Dress for Less and just bought a whole bunch of big toys and stuffed them inside. And I glued it back together, and you can see it's there on my channel, and I had my kids open it up and say what's inside, and that just took me to a whole new level. It just exploded.
The point of this show is me talking about being an author, but your observation that it doesn't matter what you're doing, you have to have passion. You have to. I like writing the books. It's something that I enjoy. You like doing the videos, and you came up with this idea. But I want the listeners who haven't seen this video to know that right now, this video put up almost 5 years ago. In a month, it'll be 5, or 2 months, it'll be 5 years. August 23rd, 2014, has 164,369,596 views. It has 85,000 plus likes. It just got another one from me.
Oh, thank you.
And it's 8 minutes and 51 seconds. I will watch it after we're off the air because I love stories of people coming up with ideas. And you know what? Well, let me ask you. You said YouTube is got 10 million YouTubers now. Do you think it's saturated? Or can a new person come up with an idea tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I always believe, I feel like I'm optimistic, and there's always someone that can come in and be the next Mr. Beast or somebody, Yeah. What I find is I kind of did it myself in a way. I one-upped my Thomas the Train video, right?
Yeah.
So what happens is now eventually someone one-ups me and makes a bigger one, right?
Sure.
Right,
but you could have an idea tomorrow.
Right, exactly. So it's still very competitive, and it's like a game. It's like playing a game. It
sounds cool. I've watched videos where there's something I didn't even know this term existed. It's called bushcraft, and it's people who enjoy going camping with limited supplies and an axe, and they cut down things and they build a little shelter. And they survive in the woods for a weekend with their dog. And, and I went down I went down that rabbit hole, and there's one YouTuber. I wish I could remember his name because I like his shows, but he has 2 or 3 million followers. I've watched 15 or 20 hours of his stuff. I don't know. I always click like because I do like them. I don't know if he's even made a dime off of my 12 or 13 hours of watching, but boy, it's been fascinating. And there's always something new that you can find.
I mean, there's so many people with huge channels I know nothing about. I mean, there's just so many. And one of the things that just happened at the beginning of the year is, I don't know if you know about the COPPA law, Child's Online Privacy Act or whatever.
I do not.
Actually, it was a law that was, I think, written quite a long ago, but they just started enforcing it. Please don't quote me on any of this, whoever's listening, because I don't know I don't know everything about the law and exactly everything that's involved with it. But basically, the law is they don't want children to be advertised to or be tracking their data or whatever, right? And so what it is that whatever even I say about YouTube, I don't know what they do. I'm just guessing or I'm speculating here. But, I would assume that they track what you watch so they understand what to serve you next time. When you go to your homepage, you will see like, okay, I just watched a fishing video. There might be 10 or 12 other types of fishing videos. They keep their data.
If I watch a lot of Demolition Ranch, those are what come up first. If I have a weekend where I watch chess, then chess comes up.
Right. And I probably would think that they probably look at what you're watching to decide, okay, what type of ads do I run on your videos?
Oh, they absolutely do.
Right.
Well, I can speak to this because in Facebook advertising, there's a thing called a tracking pixel. Okay. And so have you or anybody listening ever gone to Amazon, search for something you wouldn't typically buy, but you were curious, and then 5 minutes later you're on Facebook and you see an ad for that thing.
Right.
That's a tracking pixel, and they do the same thing. And I know that because I'm interested in that. I think it's cool. So I've looked up things that are unrelated to my life. Children's clothing. I'm 53, not married. I don't have children. So it's not something but baby formula. We'll look that up.
Right.
And it will start to show up in videos on Facebook and all.
Right.
And so I can't explain how it works necessarily, but that they are that advanced.
Right. And so the reason I'm getting to all this is with YouTube has now made it where you have to designate whether your videos are made for kids, and I'm just kind of putting it simply, made for kids or not made for kids. And all the stuff that's made for kids, it's my understanding is that they're only running like one simple ad on there, and that's it because of the COPPA law. What it means is, I think for most of the people, your salary has dropped about 95%.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, so that original Jeff Mara channel had slowed down a few years ago anyways, and my wife has a channel, Happy Family 1004, which is the one where we have like over 1 million subscribers, and then that one took off, and that was all about Nerf guns and airsoft guns. But anyways, my Jeff Mara channel has about 1,000 videos, and my kids are way too old to do that stuff anyways, and the money is not coming in because it's 95. I don't know the exact numbers, but a significant percentage of the money on the advertising is not coming in anymore. Sure. And it's harder now, in my opinion, to get a brand new channel from the beginning to get the stats up to be able to earn money, because you have to have at least 1,000 subscribers and you have to have a certain amount of watch time.
Sure.
So what I did to that channel is I privated almost all of the videos. And now my new thing is with that channel is I unbox stuff. It just slowly keeps getting bigger and bigger. I've somehow networked with all these people from China that just send me their stuff.
Oh.
And then I started unboxing it. So anyways, I privated all that stuff so it can show that it's not a children's channel anymore. Everything's private. I left a few just like, because I made a video about how I made the giant surprise egg, and there's some other, some of my ones I just left, but majority. Like, for example, if I'm sitting here, here's a sleep machine that someone sent me from China. And so I just kind of unbox it and say, hey, check out this new sleep machine. And this is the sounds it makes. And so that channel is just, I don't have to spend any money on the channel because China is sending me all the products.
Sure. And if you're having trouble sleeping, you now have a machine for that.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, I get like if I get like some of the just all kinds of stuff that just like they'll email me, so it's pretty cool. I'm hoping eventually that will kind of take off. Maybe there's just something maybe I'm missing to take me to the next level, right?
So, sure, absolutely.
Just like all my other previous experience.
Well, we talked about one of the YouTubers. I don't know if you watch Casey Neistat at all.
I know. Yeah, he's very popular. I don't really watch him much. I've watched him a little bit. He's very good.
I have watched almost all of his videos, and there's 400 or 500.
Right.
And of course he worked for HBO. He's his background was in doing movies, so he comes to it with a level of knowledge about B-roll and all those things that you do. So when I first started, he was the first YouTuber that I became a fan of, and then it led to all these others. But it's such a wonderful world we live in, where whoever's listening, if they have a passion about something, they can write a book about it.
Right.
They can create an Instagram account. They can do a YouTube channel. They can do all of them and have them feed each other.
Yes.
Because like I said, I would read a book, and it wouldn't need to be a how-to book. You could write a biography, because you have this story of being on YouTube at a time when people weren't doing it, and your wife is on YouTube. You have your life. Well, you said you were still a licensed chiropractor, but you're not doing chiropractic.
Right.
Is the reason you're not doing chiropractic because of YouTube?
That plus at the time when I stopped about 6 years ago, I had already been doing it for 20 years. I was burned out. I mean, the paperwork is just ridiculous now. I mean, I felt like I spent more time filling out the paperwork than spending time with the patient. And my best way to put it is, imagine if you took your car into you had a flat tire, and you took your car to the, tire fixer or whatever.
Sure.
Imagine that he had to look at your tire, describe what your tire looks like, ask you a bunch of questions. When did you do this? And take, and fill out a whole bunch of paperwork before he could just pull the nail out and put the patch in.
Yeah.
And that's where it's become today, because you've got to show the necessity of why the person needs the care. And so imagine if every business had to run like the medical profession does. Everything would come to a standstill. So that was another one of the things that I was ready to get out, and I was earning more and more, and I was making more than I was as a chiropractor. And then I just said, hey, my lease was coming to the end. I'm going to get out.
Yeah. Well, I think that's amazing. And again, my point being is that if a person has a passion, whether it's girl on dinosaur erotica or whatever your thing is, the Brazilian gentleman who wrote you, he loved tea and he wanted you to talk about his tea.
Right.
We now can reach everyone in the world. You're reaching an audience in China who wants you to wear their sleep machine. And so there's all these different things. And I'm fascinated by how things work together. Right. And so I started off a blog. But when I did that, I envisioned there would come a day where I would publish books, and then the blog, would help me get readers, and then my knowledge of social media, my knowledge of analytics, my knowledge of Photoshop, even using Photoshop to do an ad that I put on Facebook to drive sales. I would like to one day do a YouTube channel about building a house out of rammed earth. This is something I'm interested in, and so. If you can find a passion and take the time to learn these other things, you might get a little bit of extra money from your passion. You may not make a lot, but it's like a lottery ticket, because you may be one giant, huge egg away from taking off. Right.
And I just had an idea. It's my gift to all you authors out there. If you write the book, you own the copyright to the book.
That's correct.
So I would say if you already are an experienced author, maybe if you're it doesn't matter what level you're at.
Sure.
But it would be really interesting. It would probably do better if you are somewhat famous and you have a following, big fans, like you said, these romance novels do. Mm-hmm. What would be amazing is just try it with one book and make a video for every chapter. And the author reads the chapter because you won't have any copyright issues. And okay, we're going to read chapter, and then they get to hear it from the author. Also, if you have this massive rabid fan base, would you make more on the YouTube AdSense than you would on selling the books? And two,
well, what you need to understand is that if people listening to that idea are afraid of cannibalizing their book sales, don't be.
Right.
Because there's a whole industry, the audiobook.
Right.
And I think your idea is a really good one. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I haven't done it, because I have the equipment. I think the image quality is decent right now on this video. Wow. I could literally grab a book, and I have the technology. I do courses and stuff, so I know how to do the actual getting the video done and upload it on YouTube. I might need some guidance from you on how to be strategic with doing it, but maybe I'll do one tomorrow and let you look at it.
Sure.
I think it's a great idea, and it would be really cool to say, I started doing this, and it started on Jeff's channel just because we were brainstorming.
You read a chapter or whatever, however much you want to read. I don't know how long it's going to take to read a chapter. And there's two things I want to say is that you may want to, after you read the chapter, you may want to say, well, this is why I wrote it this way. Maybe you want to give some insight, some extra narrative of what's going on in case you missed it. And two is the very interesting thing is that I think one reason why YouTubers do well, a lot of them, is that people just kind of build, even though the YouTuber doesn't know the fan. Generally,
sure,
I don't know. We have over 1 million subscribers. I don't know, 999,950 of them, right? Maybe I know 50 people, but I don't know the people, but they know me, and they kind of have developed this relationship with me, even though I've never met them. So all your readers also may develop this relationship with you.
Yeah, no, it's a really good idea. And I like videos, and I've been looking for an excuse to do something. I don't know how long it would take, but like you said, I don't need to worry about doing a lot of post-production work. Yeah. I could just turn on the camera. The quality is good enough. Yeah. I could grab a book. Just say, let me show. I've already decided which book. One second, I want to pull it off the shelf.
Okay.
Hold on.
What would be cool? I was thinking.
Hold on. Sorry about that. It's rude to get up during an interview.
That's okay. Let me.
Okay. This is. I'm gonna do one of these two. Either Underwood Scotch and Rye, or Killing Hemingway. And I'll probably do Killing Hemingway. It's delightful. It's so cute. It's a young adult about a child genius, and there's a tortoise in there, which I very much enjoy. So I think I'm going to do that. I may do that tonight after we're done. And
tell all your readers to go watch it. And I was thinking that even also you could kind of play along with it a little bit. Like you have these 1955 detective books, right?
Yeah.
If you could set yourself up where you have a clothing that you're a detective and the hat, you know what I mean? And
I have the 50s era hat.
And then, make yourself look like you're in the book too.
Well, yeah.
That might actually be kind of interesting visually.
Because in Underwood Scotch and Rye, it's sort of I'm snarky by nature. And so this one probably does fit my personality the best. May I read the first page?
If it's your copyright, if you give me permission, then you can put it on there.
But it's your show, and so chapter 1 of Underwood Scotch and Rye.
Okay.
Monday, a few minutes after noon, he knocked on the imported mahogany door. The secretary, with her practiced tone of disapproval, had announced his arrival. He walked in and found the president of Beckerston College sharing a cigar with the dean of liberal arts. He looked at the dean and the president, gave a mocking bow, and said, I was summoned by Your Excellency. President Jonathan Grosvenor put out his cigar and said, "You're late. It's only 4 minutes after noon. Our meeting was at 10. I am unfamiliar with this 10 thing of which you speak. Maybe if you would get up at a reasonable hour once in a while, you would be." And that's how Underwood Scotch and Rye starts out. It's about a college professor who has sort of lost his way, and I could just sit there and read them.
Yeah, I think visually what would be good is if you can put your book somewhere closer to your webcam so you're not looking down.
Oh, okay. So
because we lose your face when you're looking down.
There you go. So like this, something like this?
Like that, and even if you have a webcam that's sitting on top of your monitor,
I do.
You could take it off and set it on top of your book.
That is a level of genius that I previously. Okay, we're going to try that right now.
Okay,
the camera's going on top of the book. Of
just
course,
so you feel like you're being read to.
I won't be able to turn the pages is the problem.
Right.
And so Monday, if you
and maybe you have to put you're going to have to put your book on a music stand.
There you go. The problem would be that when I get to the end of the page, it would take me 7 minutes to move the camera, change it. And
in the editing, since it's a YouTube video, it's not live. You can just edit that out and then go to the next page. You can come up and just kind of look like, okay, next page, and just go whoosh like that, and that's like that is a transition. Okay, so my wife says she likes your way, where you were looking down at the book and just reading it naturally.
Okay, well, you know what? I can try them both. Yeah. And then ask for people to leave comments on which they prefer.
Maybe where you were holding the book up. Yeah, that was better. The one where you put the book up on your next to your monitor.
Okay, like this.
Yes, maybe that. Yeah, that's still much better than looking down.
There we go. Well, you know what? I am going to try that, and I will. Well, let me ask you this. So you got started on YouTube.
Yeah. She said it's easier for you, and it looks good.
Well, thank you. Do I need to worry about really highly polished intros and outros at this juncture?
No, go look at that video with 160 million views. It's far from television quality. Well, that's the bonus. That's the brilliance of YouTube. And I think that's why people also develop a relationship with you, is because you are not polished.
That's true. The other thing is that I could put, up in the corner, I could put the cover, so people could see it.
Yeah, you could take a picture and always have it there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I have the cover art. I can do that. In the comments, of course, would be the link to the book, because people might well enjoy the first. I mean, if I'm reading it and they're following along, but they don't want to wait till tomorrow, for the next one, or every 2 or 3 days, or however long.
Yeah, once a week.
It might drive up sales, and if I record it correctly, so that I am using Adobe Audio, what's it called? I use Adobe products.
I'm a Mac person, so I don't know Adobe.
Yeah. Adobe Audition. So I could do it. I could also record the audio track separately. And this would allow me to turn. I have several of my books, including Underwood Scotch and Rye, in audio right now. But this would allow me to do the audio version of my books and get them all done. And then I could publish those myself, getting the audio book up, just reading the track there. Yeah. And what would be interesting is the only reason I don't have audio for most of my books is because of laziness.
Right.
Whereas you've gotten me fired up. So if I do this and I start reading the books, in a year, I'll have read 4 or 5 of my books, and I'll have 4 or 5 new audio books up.
Yeah.
This is a great idea. This is the start of, and it could change who knows, maybe other authors will do this. And I have lots of friends who are authors.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the reasons YouTubers who succeed is because they work with each other, and they will promote each other's channels. And so the guppies hang out with other guppies.
Yeah,
and promote it.
I mean, I agree with you, but it's really hard to get people to work with. It is very hard.
I'm sure. But if I started a whole new genre of YouTube television, the author reading the book, then is anybody still listening? We've been doing this for a while. Is Nico still there?
I don't know. I have no idea, but I'm glad I got you fired up, right?
You did.
and ideas are nothing. It's all about execution.
Well, I hope you're going 24 hours from now.
We want to see some execution, yeah. And I really think from a marketing standpoint, I like that you take a few days in between each one, because I love the idea of maybe people aren't going to want to wait to hear the rest of the book. They're going to want to go buy it.
Yeah. And I know from blogging that consistency is important for building a fan base.
Right.
And but then I also know from Brian Meeks and who I am, that when I do things per day and I build up a streak, because I blogged every day. I didn't miss a day from January 2nd, 2010 through March 23rd, 2016. That's 6 years of doing it every day.
Right.
And so for me, I think I'm gonna try this, and I think I'm gonna do it daily.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. You just gotta. I mean,
there's no downside, because I'll have fun. And if I don't ever get an audiobook out of it because I crash and burn, if the channel never takes off, it doesn't matter, because your point earlier, 40 minutes ago, when you said it has to be fun. And I have been wanting to do a YouTube channel.
Yeah. And,
a real one.
And just, it's going to take time. So you got to lower your expectations. But, you already have
my expectation is that I will get one follower, and that's going to be Nico.
Right.
Well, I'm going to send her a message, and I'm going to say I have this YouTube thing, and she's awesome, and we'll watch. So I'm setting my goal at 1.
Well, there you go. I mean, you have a great personality, and you're the author, so it should do well. As well as, just like you said, is the thing that I'm doing with this podcast. This is something new for me. I'm earning zero money off of it, but I'm grinding this almost every single day. I really enjoy talking to people like you, so it's easy for me on this end. It's really easy. The editing is very light compared to if you go to our Happy Family and look at all the action videos that we do. It takes me 20 hours to edit a video.
Does it really?
It takes. I talked to my wife because we used to drive back and forth to LA a lot because my wife's family's there. So I say doing a video is like driving to LA.
Wow.
And
that's a long drive from San Antonio.
Yes, but I'm kind of the same way doing it for you, is that this is all in one pop, that I do this live. Twitch records this. So I've got it on Twitch for a little while. I'm slowly building an audience there, and on Facebook. I download it from Twitch, then we rip it down and I make a YouTube video. And then after I make the YouTube video, I just pull out all the audio and then put it on like Apple and Spotify. So it's one job for everything.
Well, and you just brought up another great point. I do not spend a ton of time on Twitch, but I have a Twitch channel. Right. I think I have maybe 1 or 2 followers tops.
Yeah.
But I could do that. Because if I'm understanding you correctly, right now we are live on Twitch.
Right.
And so somebody could see this on Twitch. I could do that same thing where I would go back to my thing, read it on Twitch. I will have 0 people watching it live.
Right.
But I can then rip it from there. And if the day comes that I get, 25 followers watching so much in a week, you can monetize it or what have you. But it is no additional effort to do it on Twitch and then rip it for YouTube. I mean, very little to rip it for YouTube. And I get 2 things.
Right. And actually,
the third thing may be the audiobook.
And I was going to say that you don't have to do Twitch. You can do Facebook, because we were just experimenting today. Because on Facebook, on this live, it shows like, I don't know how you say it, but it has all the words of our conversation, right? And my wife, we were watching, was like, hey, let's just download it from Facebook so we'll get all the text too. But unfortunately, it doesn't make it when you download it. But if you want to do it live on Facebook, you can do the same thing and download it. Or here's one more thing. That's what I'm doing is there's a free program called Streamlabs. And
I'm going to write that down. Streamlabs.
And with Streamlabs, I'm actually simulcasting. So I'm doing both Facebook and Twitch at the same time right now.
Wow, you are just, see, I'm one of those people that I believe in you hear people talk about multiple streams of income. Mm-hmm. If you can tick 3 or 4 boxes with one bit of effort,
right?
Well, your chances just go up, because it's in this world, whether it's books, but storytelling in general. Mm-hmm. If I'm on Twitch and I'm laboring for a year and I've got 17 followers but I'm enjoying myself, but then Mr. Beast just happens to listen to me read a chapter of the book,
right?
And he tells his 25 million,
right?
Well, just doing it's like having a lottery ticket, because the right person listens. If Oprah decides to put me in her book club, well, that's going to add some sales,
right? Exactly.
Can you give me that simulcast name again?
Well, I mean, it's just a program. It's called
What's the program called?
It's called Streamlabs.
Streamlabs. Okay.
And it's a free download online. You can download it. All this live streaming stuff was originally for gamers.
Yeah.
And the gamers.
I mean, I've watched. Okay. You know what? Okay. I got to tell a gaming streaming story, because this we've gone far away from the book business, but I love this story. Everyone's familiar with Minecraft.
Right.
I had many years ago a friend, we were just chatting, and he said, have you seen this game Minecraft? And this Minecraft hadn't been out for that long.
Right.
And I said, no. And he goes, it's pretty cool. There's these 2 guys that play it on YouTube. They're British, and I know you like all things British, because really everything's better with a British accent. I think we can all agree with that.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And so he told me that, and it was a Saturday night, and I remember this, and I don't remember the year,
right?
But I got up Sunday morning, Super Bowl Sunday, at 10 in the morning, and he had sent me a link to their first video of them playing, which at the time it was the beta version of Minecraft, and so it wasn't open to the world yet. So they're playing, and the one guy had played for an hour prior to them getting together, and his friend in some other town in the United Kingdom, it was his first time. And so they're going along, and the first time they see a zombie, the friend screams, this high-pitched, terrified scream. And it was so funny, because he was genuinely startled by the monster, or the
creeper.
The creeper. Well, to get to the end of the story, these guys had their videos at the time, years ago, had on average around 3 million views for these they were 10 minutes each.
Right.
I was watching some other guys play a video game. It's the first time I'd ever done that. And I missed the Super Bowl. I watched 14 hours of these guys playing Minecraft, because they were funny. They were just hilarious. They would mock each other, and they were just building this thing. And then at some point on like video 60 or something, they come into their little world, and there was a sign, and they didn't know where it came from. And the guy who created Minecraft had gotten into their thing and put some stuff. And so that added a level of intrigue, and that hooked me for like that. I was at 6 hours, and then I had 8 more hours of watching them. So I watched 14 hours of Minecraft, and then I bought it that night, played for 10 hours. So like a whole day of my life was lost to that, but it's the power of entertainment. If it's done well, and we'll see if I can do it well.
Yeah, and I'll give you just one other tip: is you can also live stream to YouTube direct if you don't want to edit it. If you don't want to edit your video at all,
I think I probably would want to at least do it. Give it a little polish.
You can always do that as well, and I believe that you may be able to grow your channel faster when you're live streaming. But I don't have the data to back that up.
Well, and I love learning new things, so I'll figure that out. And I want to give a shout to April Bielefeld, because April Bielefeld is the one who clued me into what you're doing, and that's the reason I reached out to you. And I have known April since kindergarten.
Oh, wow. I didn't have the chance to ask April or Jeff. I didn't even know how they found me.
I didn't ask her. She just said, because I was on her, she started a new YouTube channel and interviewing people. It's a travel stuff. And I had travel stories, because I went to, in January of 2019, on a third date, took my date to Bali for an author conference and got deported to South Korea.
Oh, wow.
And so I tell that story on April's new show. And maybe you could put that, because I'm not going to tell that story. That's a long story. We're already almost to 2 hours.
It's already on April's. They can go see April's channel. And I'm happy to say, hey, guys, go see April's channel if you want to hear that story.
Yeah, what I need to do is maybe I could find the link to the show if she has it up and send it to you, and you can put it below this or whatever so they can find it.
Right.
But anyway, because I don't know April's channel off the top of my head, which is a bad friend. If you're friends with somebody since kindergarten, you should know the name of their new YouTube channel when you were on their show a week ago.
Right.
But I'm old and I forget things. So I'm sorry, April. Please forgive me.
So you've got your homework to do.
Yes.
And I need to probably wrap this up. So how do people find out about you? If they want to find out more about you or your service of copywriting, or if they want to find out about your books, how do they go find out about you?
Well, you find me on Facebook. That's where I do all of my work. You can send me a DM if we're not connected. I might not spot it for a couple of days because there's the two things, your friends and then the other. But I'll see it eventually, and you can reach out to me. I love chatting with people. I also have 2 Facebook groups, Mastering Amazon Ads and Mastering Amazon Descriptions. Those are author groups. There's about 11,000 people in them between the 2 groups. And if you tag me on a question, I will answer it. And so that's how you find me. I don't care that much about promoting myself. I just really enjoyed being on your show, and maybe we can do a follow-up if I don't, if I pull off this book reading, which is your idea, then maybe we can talk about it, and that would be cool.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And have I convinced you to write a book, because I want to read your book.
Yeah, I've just one, I don't have the time because my life is 24 hours a day on YouTube, it seems. But 2, YouTube is to me constantly changing. It's hard to really give people a lot of advice because things keep changing all the time.
Well, that's why I think you should do a biography.
So it would be more, my life as a YouTuber would probably be more interesting, and the things I've gone through would probably be more interesting than.
That's what I want to read. I want to hear your story.
Right.
And so you talk about the one bit of advice to folks out there is, if somebody is listening and they've always wanted to write a book, I tell them, try to write every day for 15 minutes.
That's a good idea.
You might only get 200 words, but what you'll find is you very quickly get to where you're doing 30 or an hour. And at an hour a day, it is nearly impossible not to get 500 words. 500 words in 3 months, you're going to have a novel.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Just doing it every day. And don't go back and edit it. I mean, if you see that you spelled the wrong, you can fix that, but don't stress over, is it good enough or what have you. Just don't do any of that. Write. And so if you were to write a biography, maybe your first, I decided to do a YouTube video.
Right.
And then and just sat down and you wrote that. In 3 months, if you were doing it every day, if you cut out a little bit of time just to write your thoughts, you would have the book done.
Yeah, I like that. I should start. You said 15 minutes a day?
Yes, if you do 15 minutes a day, and if you're like me in that once you get a streak going and you've done it every day for 8 days and you just don't want to skip a day. I wrote 3 of my blog posts during a bout of the flu that nearly killed me. But I had 3 years of consecutive blog posts. I wasn't going to let constant pain and anguish stop me from getting the blog posts up that day. And so I kept the streak alive for 6 years, and then I was ready to move on. But if I'm going to do this book thing, it was such a good idea. For me, I will have to do it every day because it will be the streak of consecutive days that will keep me doing it. And frankly, I've been a little lazy of late.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't know why I'm saying
I needed a new thing. So thanks for having me on the show. This has been wonderful. I really appreciate it. In the interest of full disclosure, Nico is my cover artist. So
she is your cover artist?
She does my cover art for my most recent series, my epic fantasy series, which is called Chronicles of the Fifth Kingdom. So if you go on there and you see Chronicles of the Fifth Kingdom, Dragon's Fury is the first book. And She's really good at it. In fact, I don't even come up with the titles of my books anymore, because on the first one, Dragon's Fury, the book was done. It was ready to go. She had the cover art done, and she said, "You haven't given me a title." And we're just chatting on Instant Messenger. And so I said, I typed the title to her. Right. And her response was MMMHMMM, just a long I laughed. I said, "So you don't like the title?" And within 30 seconds, she had written 3 titles that were better. One of them was Dragon's Fury, and we went with it. And now I write the books. She comes up with the art and comes up with the title.
That's
because
awesome.
I don't care that much. I would rather have a good title created by her than a crappy one, just so I can say I came up with it. Yeah. And she's really, really good at it. And so that's who Nico is. She's a very dear friend and a really good artist. So
I think you just got to be able to, get over your ego. You don't mind sharing, sharing the stage.
Here's a tip that I give people. If you're new and you can do this and you don't already have, some people will have 2 or 3 books finished, but let's say you haven't finished your book. If you can hire your cover artist before you finish the book, or even before you start, and give them sort of a 50,000 foot view. I am writing an urban fantasy that takes place in a post-apocalyptic world. My character is this badass woman who throws knives. Right. That's all I know thus far. And then an artist like Nico, they then have enough information that they can start to create some ideas for covers, and they'll get it done long before you finish the book. So now she sent you this cover art, and you're like, "Oh, wow, I love that one." Then instead of trying to have cover art that matches a scene in the book, you write the scene that matches the cover art. So my books, I did that with, this was before I met Nicole, Nico, the Magellan Apocalypse. Okay, so there's my space opera. Yeah. And I found the art before I finished the book. And so I actually went back into a chapter I'd already written and just changed 2 paragraphs, the descriptors that the character was giving, looking out the window when this scene was happening. And I edited my descriptions to match what the cover artist had done. And so it's absolutely from the book, because the art came first. And so that's interesting. That is a tip I would give folks, that if you are thinking of a book as far as fiction, and you can find an artist you trust ahead of time, you will be able to, it just makes the process easier. So,
right. Before I let you go here, I want to just ask one more thing do you think most authors have trouble, or is this common or not, have trouble coming up with an idea of what to write about? And then once they figure out, okay, like for me, even with a YouTube, because a lot of my videos are on my Happy Family 1004 channel are actually action videos. And I got to okay, why are we, and it's basically cops and robbers, right? Well, why is the cop, who's he going to fight today? And what's the story? Once I get the story in my mind, it's all downhill from there. But just figuring out what the story is going to be about. So as I say, does most writers, is it they got to come up with a story first, and then once they finally, I'm going to write about this, then it's easy, or am I way off base?
No. You've asked a good question, because there are 2 methodologies for writing a book that are talked about all the time in these forums and on these groups on Facebook or what have you. And they are, the 2 types of authors are, there's pantsters and plotters. A pantster is an author where he or she doesn't have a plan for the book. And I wrote my first 7 novels, or 6 novels, 7, I guess my first 7 novels as a pantster, meaning I would write a chapter and I didn't know who the bad guy was. I didn't know who committed the murder. I had no idea. I just figured I'd figure it out, and I did. So that's how I wrote my novels. Well, the Magellan Apocalypse, this one was the first time I tried plotting. And plotting is simply the methodology where one does an outline. They figure out the beats, and beats are sort of the chapters where you would, if you're going to have 30 chapters in your book, you might have 30 beats, and it's just 1 or 2 sentences. Nash wakes up and the beautiful woman standing over him. That's it. And so you have all these beats. And then once you have that, you've got the novel planned out from start to finish. You start to write. Well, I had always been a pantser, but I'm a data person, and I like to say, okay, well, I don't know if I would be any good at plotting because I've never tried it.
Right.
So I used Sean Platt's Beats course from Udemy. Sean Platt's an author who has a podcast called Self-Publishing Podcast. Him and these 2 other gentlemen, Wright and Johnny B. Truant. And I knew him, and I wanted, and that's how they do their books. So I bought the course, read through it. Typically, it would take me 60 days to write a novel at that time. This I wrote in 2 weeks. Wow. And it's because I had everything. I spent a day, I planned everything out, and then I got it written 5 hours short of a fortnight because I had everything laid out. Now, I didn't actually use the entire outline. I got to the end of the first act because I wrote it in 3 acts. I got to the end of the first act. I had this idea, and it just hit me like a bolt of lightning. What if this happened? Now, that wasn't part of my outline. But this book was just act 1 plus then the other direction that I went. Then I did book 2, which was act 2 in the original outline. And then there's a third book, which was act 3. So I ended up, though I had it all planned out, I pantstered the last 2/3 of the book because I had a better idea. But I was so into I just had everything pictured so clearly that it was easy to write. And so currently, I have gone back to being a pantster. I am less efficient. Last year, from January through May, I wrote 5 novels. I was banging them out about every 27 days in this epic fantasy series. I'm good at that. If I planned them out, I could do them in 2 weeks because I know I'm better when I plot it out. I just don't like it. And so, I make enough money doing what I do that there's no sense choosing the path that I enjoy less than the other path. So I choose the less efficient path because it goes back to what you said an hour ago. You have to love it. So I do it the way I love it. But those are the 2 ways. And the last point is anybody who writes a book, their first one is the worst book they will ever write. It doesn't mean it's a bad book. It just means that they continue to improve. And don't think you need to go back and rewrite your books and fix them. Just understand, if somebody listening to your show today has decided she's finally going to write that romance idea she's had and wanted to write for 20 years, and now she's going to do it, that she will get done with that book. She will write another one, and somewhere along the line, she will go back and read book 1, and it won't be as good as the one she just wrote because we get better, and that's okay. Readers know that.
Right.
So that's my parting shot there.
All right. Well, thank you. That's a great way. That's a great ending to the podcast. And Brian, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you. I wish you massive success with your new YouTube channel.
Yes.
And that'll be, if it blows up, it'll be even a win for me because, it
will. And because I will tell that story. I will tell that story at conferences. And I mean, it might blow up. It might start a whole genre on YouTube.
Right. So if it does, my advice would if it starts doing really well, then you better do every one of your books and be the first one before everybody else starts doing it.
To be honest, there are probably people that have done it. But I mean, I'm sure if I did a search on YouTube, there may be other authors that have read their book. But Google wasn't the first search engine.
Right.
When was the last time somebody said, I don't know the answer to that question, but let me Yahoo it.
Right.
Nobody searches on AOL anymore.
Right.
So there may be people that have done it. So I will probably never claim that I was the first, but if it takes off, I might be the first person to do it right. And that will be because of you. And I will give you credit every chance I get.
All right. Well, I mean, you're doing the work.
But you're right.
I just put it out there. You do the work. You deserve all the credit.
Well, thank you, Jeffrey. Mm-hmm. And there will come a day, because I have this dream of buying land in West Texas. Okay. So probably in the next 5 to 6 months, I'm going to be passing through San Antonio, where a friend that I've known since 5th grade lives. And I'd love to get coffee or something. I know you're busy, but of course, I'd love to meet in person.
Yeah, that would be awesome.